Hello, chicas. Today on the menu is going to be a topic that I think applies to many of you. In particular, I'm talking here two cohorts of people today. One who plays 1d4 with white and often plays the Queen's Gambit declined and its various variations and sidelines and whatnot. And the other big cohort is the Alapin players, who also often end up in pawn structures like the one on the screen right now. Obviously, if you don't belong to either of these, you still shouldn't click away, because as usual, I'm coming at you with some really awesome educational content that will help you to win more chess games. So, what I'm going to talk about today is exactly this pawn formation. White dominating the center, black having these two pawns near the center but not quite in it. There is a c5 break pending. We all know that white is definitely clearly better here, and yet on club level, these types of positions very often go sideways, and the players behind the white pieces often find themselves a little bit planless, not sure how to play it, and so on, and often things evolve in a way that we don't really want. So today I'm going to show you a couple of examples of what to do and where to take it from here, but I think it's best if we start from kickoff so we actually see how these positions occur in the first place. And our first customer is going to be the super friendly Slovakian GM Lubomir Vtačnik, and the opening is actually it's not a Queen's Gambit declined anymore, it's a semi-Slav, and it's a semi-Slav Meran. Bishop e7, bishop d3, a move that 9 out of 10 club players would be very reluctant to play here on account of this coming with a tempo, which is nonsense because this also gives up center. It also doesn't help black at all, so you can't really call it a tempo because there is nothing useful happening in the interim on the black side, and now we are granted full access to the center. I have spoken about this particular move and the concepts behind it many times already on this channel, so I'm not gonna make it any longer, other than do not be the guy who doesn't play bishop d3 here. b5 is going to come soon. We pull the bishop back, no worries. a6 to support the b5 pawn, and e4. And here we are. Black is already actually in severe trouble because e5 is threatening to win a pawn on h7 once the knight moves. Hence h6, and if I'm not mistaken, this was the position that I used as my intro point. Now, the general gist of what you want to do in these positions is as follows. If the c5 break is pending and it seems to cause discomfort in our position, it usually is a very good sign that we need to do something before. And that something almost always, not exclusively though, I might actually make a second video where I will show you a different pawn advance pattern, but in this one today we are going to talk about the e5 thrust. And once again, this is a completely no-brainer move in the sense that there is nothing that would be as good as e5 here. Maybe queen e2, but that is only a move order change, and e5 next. Otherwise, queen e2 makes no sense. So the point is this. You play e5. Now that makes the pawns rigid, and once again on club level, I hear a lot like, oh, but now I gave up the d5 square. But when I counter that and we didn't gain the e4 square, there is usually a silence to that, because somehow people always tend to look at the negatives and not so much the positives of a move. But here obviously knight e4 would be a horrendous positional blunder on account of knight b4 scoring the light squared bishop. No. The idea is far more crude and to the point, and that is the previously mentioned queen e2, after which queen e4 and Matutsky. And here I really wanted to have that pause that I did, but perhaps not long enough, because what you see here is that if you ask a club level player here about their candidate moves, 9 out of 10 will say castles. Right? And the game is going to take a fundamentally different character, especially if they don't play e5 here. But let's say they take. And then after knight c6 or even bishop takes c5, it may be playable, although knight b4 c5 is on. Yeah, let's just go with knight c6, a3, bishop takes c5. You see that the position has acquired a very different character. Black is actually not that badly off. They have got fluid development. Their position is quite nice. Instead of this, in a mere two, actually let's be fair, 3 moves. Okay, so 2, I set up a third move mate threat. Game over. Checkmate. You see here the vast difference between how the Grandmaster plays and how most club players would do, is that they immediately seize the moment. Because now we are dominating the center. They have got absolutely non-existent development, and they also played a very clumsy h6, which makes queen e4 infinitely stronger, because anytime they play g6, this is gonna hang. Which is gonna be game, by the way. Knight takes, pawn takes. Queen d5 played. Desperate attempt to deny queen e4. Bishop e4, kicking the queen and pulling the bishop back. Optimizing piece placement. Note that this is not repetition. The bishop was on d3 earlier. Now I have 2 ways to jump onto the diagonal. Queen d5 played, still hoping that queen e4 is gonna be white's main move, but of course not the case. Queen d3 and the game is over. That's it. I mean, I will show you the rest because it's quite instructive. Once again, no hesitation, going for the throat like it is done well. When chess is played well, that's what it looks like. And actually, I'm a little bit shocked to see the queen trade. I definitely would have played here, queen e3. But to be fair to Vtachnik, even after the queen trade, the attack is ridiculously strong. GH, rook takes, and yeah, black called it a day. It's about +5 here. King e2, rook across, and once again, even without the queens on the board, black's position is utterly miserable. Now, to be fair, this was an absolute carnage, and black slightly misplayed the opening, but nonetheless, I found this concept of e5 going for the quick mate threat on the diagonal super instructive. Let me show you a different story, although still we are looking at GM versus lower rated opponent, but who said that we shouldn't be learning from high rated players? Once again, with a different move order, but we are engaging with a Meran kind of story. Knight d7, of course, is a much better move here than bishop e7. And once again, the same business goes down. Bishop d3, we are more than happy to give that extra move. I'm not going to call it a tempo for black. And us play 1, 2, 3 bishop moves, because we obtain the center, we obtain beautiful piece placement. Bishop b7 played, not really great. Castles and c5. Now what we observe here is that black here actually has managed to play c5. And again, the most forceful, dynamic, aggressive way is the only way to play and the only way to secure the advantage here for white. And that is accomplished by, before I tell you this, I want you to pause the video and spend a couple of minutes to tell me how you think you would continue this position, excuse me, with white, because I'm curious how you will match against what actually happened. So, the best way to play, and what's really beautiful about this, by the way, is that it is completely forcing. So there is no legroom whatsoever for black to, you know, come up with some crazy idea or be really cool and find something that we didn't think of. This is one straight line, and that's what makes it A, easy to find, and B, logical to play. We take c5, bishop takes back, and at this point we begin to score fat tempi on almost every black piece that there is out. So e5, hitting the knight with a tempo, and we did want to play e5 to open up this, to open up the e4 square, and so on. Knight d5 and knight e4 with the tempo. Bishop g5, I think maybe the same, but knight e4 is perhaps more accurate because it avoids the knight c3 intermezzo. And when the bishop goes back, then we play bishop g5. This is the key idea, softening the d6 square. In fact, right now, knight d6 check is a game-winning threat. And that, friends, is again what good aggressive chess looks like. So black struck at the center with c5, and we just went after them like mad. Now the game featured f6, which was a real desperate attempt by black to break the pin on the bishop. Castles is best here by far. Whereupon maybe bishop e7 followed by knight d6, or maybe the instant knight d6 warrants white significant advantage. And after f6 it was just carnage city, a beautiful game by the way. Knight d4, now the queen is entering the fray, knight takes e6 is threatened, and yeah, white managed to beautifully destroy the defenses. I blitzed through this because I didn't want to necessarily talk about the tactical finesses. I very much recommend you to play through this game, and the previous one too, by the way, more slowly to understand the concepts that went down there. But yeah, nonetheless, this was an amazing game. And yeah, here queen g3 is the marvelous coup de grace when we cut the king off, and now all knight discovered checks are going to have catastrophic consequences for black. But again, the key idea was this. We took c5, we played e5 tempo, knight e4 tempo, and bishop g5 tempo too. Because now knight d6 is a game-winning threat. So we mobilized our entire army and gained space at the same time in a remarkably aggressive fashion. Now, I don't know how well you are reading between the lines, but the common denominator between these two games was aggression. And generally speaking, by the way, chess is played well when it's played in an aggressive, forward-going, dynamic, brutal fashion, opposed to tentative, hesitant, defensive, yada yada yada. So yeah, this is just a marvelous example of how to go after your opponent. Now, to make this a really touching, or well, not touching, but a slightly cool story, I had this game on stream when we had a Semislav masterclass 2 days ago on stream. And the audience seemed to have enjoyed it immensely, and we discussed quite a bit about that structure too. And then one of the followers, in fact one of the most enthusiastic followers of my stream and my work in general, played a game the other day, and he just sent it to me going like, check this out. And so he happens to be behind the white pieces here, and this is also why I, by the way, mentioned the Alpine Sicilian players, because now this is, although not quite identical structure, because in the previous game we had the pawn on c6, but this is where good chess players and good learners are able to exploit, utilize a concept in a new environment. By the way, that is the definition of an A grade in Australian primary schools, when someone understands and learns a concept to perfection, and then they are able to utilize that in a different context. And that is a very, very good call for chess players too, that they recognize here that this is actually a different pawn structure, and slight blemish that a6 is hanging for free here, but still I can go e5 and I can go knight e4, and there you have it. Again, what we did was a very effective central pawn break that allowed us more piece mobility, more central control, and more threats. Unfortunately, the game didn't quite finish the way it should have, because after knight c4, although our friend did see rook takes c4, he actually chickened out and played instead the timid b3, which is nowhere near as good, because here bishop g5 is a problem. But luckily our opponent didn't see it, and after knight d6 check, the game came to an very sudden end. Nonetheless, once again, I think this was really, really instructive. And as you can see, already the newly learned concept was put to use with a big fat W. So shout out to our friend, Mr. Ramanujan, who did this really, really well. I do think that I will give you another video on this topic, where we are going to deal with a different break, which is dominantly occurring in this structure when we are going to break with d5, e5, but I will leave that for another video. For now, I think this was a really, really good experience, learning experience, and some fun games there. I'm gonna probably put at least the first two, maybe all three, in the description if you would like to have a look at these in your own time, which I encourage you to do so. And I also encourage you to please smash the like button, please leave a comment down below, please recommend someone else to watch my videos, because that is the way to get good at chess. And yeah, stay tuned for the next. Thanks for watching. Bye.